They thought inviting me was charity. What they forgot is that I never show up unarmed. That's how I'll start this, because I don't know how else to get it out. Maybe none of you will believe an old man rambling on the internet, but I need to tell it somewhere. And I promise you, by the end, you'll understand why no one in my family sings Christmas carols anymore. Last week, I got a phone call from my daughter-in-law, Lisa. She made her voice sound sugar-sweet, like she was offering me some grand prize. "Dad, we'd love it if you joined us for Christmas dinner this year. The kids would love to see you." It had been years since they invited me to anything. Usually, I'm the forgotten one, the widower, the old man who sits alone in his quiet house at the edge of town. They only call when they need something. But I said yes. Not because I wanted to. But because something in her tone felt staged. Like it was rehearsed. And then, the night before Christmas, I got a different phone call. No caller ID. A voice I didn't recognize. A man, low and calm. "Tomorrow, don't eat the food. Watch the firewood. And for God's sake, check under the tree." Then he hung up. I should have dismissed it as a prank. But there was something about the way he said it, like he knew me. Like he knew them. So, Christmas morning, I shaved, polished my old boots, and dug something out of my attic I hadn't touched in decades. Let's just say it wasn't a sweater. And when I stepped through their front door, I already knew, this dinner wasn't going to be about family. It was going to be a test. And they had no idea who they invited. When I walked in, the first thing I noticed wasn't the smell of turkey. It was the silence. Everyone looked at me like I was a stray dog that had wandered in. My son, Mark, gave me a half smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. Lisa leaned in to kiss my cheek, but I could see the flicker of annoyance cross her face when she realized I'd actually shown up. And the grandkids, well, two of them buried their faces in their phones, and the youngest whispered something to Lisa that made her laugh. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. "Why's he even here?" The kind of thing that digs under your ribs. I set the gift I brought under the tree. Just a simple wooden box, nothing wrapped, nothing flashy. Lisa gave me a look like I'd put a dead rat down there. "Interesting choice," she said. Now here's the thing, I wasn't expecting warmth. But I wasn't expecting the little games they had planned either. The first was, where should Grandpa sit? At the far end of the table, of course. They made a whole production out of it, giggling as they squeezed chairs together so I'd be stuck in the corner like a kid who couldn't be trusted near the grown-ups. Fine. I've eaten in worse corners. But then, when dinner was finally served, Lisa placed a plate in front of me that was different. Smaller. Colder. Almost like it had been sitting out. And I remembered the phone call. "Don't eat the food." So I smiled, picked up my fork, and pretended to dig in. But my eyes weren't on the turkey. They were on the fireplace. The logs crackled too evenly. Too neat. And then, under the crackle, I heard it, a faint ticking sound. The thing about being old is that people assume you can't hear much. They forget that silence sharpens the senses. And what I heard from that fireplace wasn't the sound of sap popping. It was a clock. A hidden one. I leaned back, pretending to chew on that cold slab of turkey, while my eyes drifted to the mantel. Stockings hung neatly in a row, and right beneath them, the firewood glowed a little too evenly, like every log had been cut the same length. Military precision. Manufactured. Mark noticed me staring. "You like the fire, Dad," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Lisa picked out the wood special. "Imported." They laughed. Imported firewood. Like I'd never seen a staged setup before. I smiled back, because here's the truth, back in the 70s, when I was deployed in places my family couldn't find on a map, we used to do the same thing. Hide little devices in the ordinary. Radios inside books. Triggers in cigarette packs. The ticking grew louder the longer I listened. And then came the accident. One of the grandkids, the middle one, Jacob, darted past the tree to grab his new game console from the pile of gifts. His foot snagged the lower branches and sent a wrapped package rolling across the floor. Only, it wasn't one of theirs. It was old, the wrapping yellowed at the edges, tied with twine instead of ribbon. And when Jacob picked it up, his face changed. He looked at me, not his parents. "Grandpa," he whispered. "This has your name on it." And for the first time all evening, the room went quiet. Jacob handed me the box like it was radioactive. His parents didn't move, just stared, tight-lipped. The wrapping was brittle, like it had been sitting in an attic for decades. And sure enough, on the faded tag, written in a hand I hadn't seen in 40 years, was my name. To Henry. From M. My late wife's initial. Lisa broke the silence first, her voice sharp. "Where the hell did that come from? That's not from us." I turned the box over in my hands. It wasn't light. Whatever was inside shifted with a dull thud. A piece of wood? Metal? Hard to tell. Mark tried to laugh it off. Probably some prank. You know the neighbors, Dad, always leaving junk lying around. But his eyes darted to the fire. And in that glance, I caught something, fear. The rest of dinner went on like a play. They told stories where the punchline was me, asked loaded questions about why I still lived all alone in that old shack, and every time I opened my mouth, someone interrupted. I smiled through it. Laughed even. Because that box sat heavy on my lap the whole time, like a reminder. When dessert came, Lisa set down a pie and said, "Careful, Dad, don't break your dentures." The kids laughed until they wheezed. So I raised my glass. To family, I said, my voice steady. And to the surprises they never see coming. They chuckled, thinking I was just being sentimental. But Jacob kept staring at the box, his face pale. Because while everyone else was laughing, he was the only one who noticed it. The twine had come loose. And inside, the box wasn't empty. It was ticking too. I didn't open it. Not yet. The family wanted me humiliated, cornered, boxed in. Well, I had my own box, and just letting it sit there rattled them more than any words I could have said. Every time the ticking shifted, Lisa's smile tightened another notch. Mark kept pouring himself more wine than he usually drinks. They thought I didn't notice. But I notice everything. Halfway through dessert, the storm outside hit full force. Snow against the windows, wind howling down the chimney. The power flickered once, twice, then steadied. Lisa forced a laugh. "Well, looks like we're stuck together for the night." Like she'd planned it. Like that was the punchline of some cruel joke. The kids groaned about the Wi-Fi lagging, and while they complained, I took the chance to excuse myself. Went to the bathroom, locked the door, and finally pulled the twine loose. Inside the wrapping was an old cedar box. Not the one I'd brought. This was older. Hand-carved, the kind you'd find in an antique shop. The initials MH burned into the bottom. My wife's, again. The ticking was louder now. I braced myself, opened the lid. And froze. It wasn't a bomb. It was a pocket watch. My pocket watch. The one I lost the night she died. Except now, tucked beside it, was a folded piece of paper. In her handwriting. I'll never forget what it said. "Henry, if you're reading this, they've turned on you. Don't trust the fire. Don't trust the wine. And when the clock stops, it begins." And just as my eyes traced the last line, the ticking stopped. And then I heard the scream from the dining room. I bolted from the bathroom, cedar box still in my hand. The dining room was chaos. One of the stockings had fallen into the fireplace, flames licking higher than they should have, and the youngest grandkid, Emma, was crying, clutching her hand. "Burned herself," Lisa said quickly, rushing to pull Emma close. "Just an accident." But here's what I saw: the stocking hadn't fallen. The hook had been unscrewed. I know the difference. And the fire didn't flare because of fabric, it flared because something inside those logs wasn't just wood. I kept my mouth shut. Mark waved me off when I offered to help, like I'd only get in the way. They herded Emma into the kitchen, Lisa fussing like the perfect mother while throwing me little dagger looks over her shoulder. That's when Jacob came close, whispering so only I could hear. "Grandpa, the clock stopped. I slipped the watch into my pocket. I know, son. For the first time that night, I felt a strange shift. Jacob wasn't laughing at me. He wasn't part of their performance. He looked scared, yes, but also curious. Maybe even loyal. And then came the smell. At first, I thought it was the pie cooling on the counter. But no. It was sharper, metallic. Burning. From the kitchen, Lisa shrieked. The oven. Oh my God, Mark, the turkey. The smoke alarm wailed. Black smoke poured out as they flung the oven door open. Inside wasn't just charred meat. Nestled under the roasting pan was something wrapped in foil, glowing faint red. Not food. Not a side dish. Something else. And as the smoke swirled, I heard it again. Another faint ticking. Mark grabbed a towel, coughing as he yanked the foil bundle out of the oven and slammed it on the counter. Smoke curled off the metal like it was alive. Jesus Christ, he muttered, unwrapping the edges with shaking hands. Inside wasn't food. It was a smaller roasting pan, blackened and warped. And at the very bottom, half melted but still recognizable, was a cassette tape. A damn cassette tape. The kids didn't even know what they were looking at. Lisa wrinkled her nose like it was garbage. But I knew. That tape was the same kind my wife and I used to record Christmas mornings on, her voice, the kids' laughter, all those memories I thought were lost. Mark caught me staring. Don't touch it, he snapped, more harshly than he meant to. It's dangerous. Dangerous? A cassette? Lisa swooped in. Probably some rat's nest that got stuck in the oven lining. Ignore it. Dinner's ruined anyway. She forced a laugh, waving the smoke away, trying to corral everyone back into the living room like nothing had happened. But Jacob hung back. He kept glancing at me, then at the melted tape. His lips moved, barely a whisper. This isn't the first one. I didn't respond, not with Lisa's hawk eyes darting around the room, but I tucked that phrase into the back of my mind. This wasn't the first one. The storm outside rattled the windows harder. The house groaned, like the snow was pressing in. And through it all, that second ticking didn't stop. It was still coming from somewhere, muffled but steady. And then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the house. And over the silence, I heard a voice. Not from the family. Not from any room I could see. A man's voice, low and deliberate. Henry. Time to open your present. The blackout silenced everything. No fridge hum, no furnace, not even the kids whining. Just the wind hammering at the windows. And that voice. Calm. Male. Measured. Henry. Time to open your present. It didn't come from the tape. It didn't come from any phone. It came from inside the walls, vibrating through the studs like the house itself was speaking. The kids screamed. Lisa snapped into performance mode, clapping her hands like it was all a prank. All right, very funny. Who's running around with a speaker? But her laugh was hollow. And in the dark, I saw Mark's hand shaking around the wine glass he still clutched. He knew something. The emergency lights flickered on, dim, battery-powered glow strips along the baseboards. Not theirs. Installed quietly, professionally. I'd know. I've installed the same kind before. The storm howled harder. Snow sealed the doors shut. We weren't leaving. Jacob edged closer to me, whispering, "Grandpa, who was that?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Because the truth was clawing at the back of my mind, the voice belonged to someone I hadn't heard in decades. Someone I thought was dead. The cedar box in my pocket felt heavier by the second. The watch. The note. The warnings. The ticking started again, but louder this time. Not from the oven. Not from the fireplace. From the Christmas tree. And then the lights flickered once more, just enough to show every single ornament on that tree was swaying, like they'd been touched. But no one was near it. Every ornament trembled on its hook like the tree itself was shivering. Then, one by one, they started to fall. Clink. 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 Glass shattered across the hardwood. Not just fragile baubles, but hollow shells. And inside each one, rolled paper. Lisa screamed as if shards had cut her, but not a drop of blood touched her. No, she was screaming because she knew what was inside those ornaments. The kids scrambled back, covering their ears as if paper could bite. Mark lunged forward, scooping the scraps before I could touch them, but not fast enough. I snagged one. Unrolled it. My wife's handwriting again. Her voice on paper. He is in the house. You know his name. Do not let them silence you again. I read it aloud. And the air shifted. The kids didn't understand, but Mark and Lisa. Their faces drained of color like I'd just recited a death sentence. Mark barked, "Enough of this crap. Dad, you're scaring the kids." But he wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the shadows by the stairwell. That's when Jacob whispered, trembling. "Grandpa, there's someone upstairs." The storm slammed the shutters just then, a gunshot of wind. The power strained, the house groaning with it. And through it all, the voice returned, clearer, closer. "Henry. Time to finish what we started." The ornaments weren't ornaments. The notes weren't messages. They were warnings. And whoever was upstairs had just started moving. The whole house went still, like it was holding its breath. Then came the sound, slow, deliberate steps from upstairs. Wood creaking under weight that wasn't supposed to be there. The kids bolted to Lisa, clinging to her dress. She tried to soothe them, her voice shaking as badly as her hands. It's just the wind," she stammered. But no gust of wind walks across the hallway. Mark grabbed the fireplace poker, brandishing it like a sword. I almost laughed. He didn't even hold it right. The boy never did learn the first thing about defense. Another step. Then another. The intruder wasn't rushing. He wanted us to hear him. To know he was in control. Jacob stayed by my side, his eyes wide but steady. "Grandpa," he whispered, "who is it?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Because I had a damn good guess. And saying the name out loud would make it real. Mark shouted toward the ceiling, "Who's there? You're trespassing in my house." The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed in, heavier than the storm. Then, 3 knocks. Not on the front door. Not on the walls. On the floorboards, directly above us. Lisa's face drained white. She knew what it meant. The lights flickered again, and in that flash, I caught sight of something I hadn't seen in years, a mark burned into the banister. An old emblem. One I thought I'd buried with the past. The emblem of a unit that officially never existed. And if he was really here, then I knew exactly who was upstairs. My old war buddy. My old rival. The one man who swore, decades ago, he'd make me pay. The footsteps started again, slow and deliberate, descending the staircase. Each creak was a countdown. Mark tightened his grip on the poker, sweat shining on his forehead. Lisa backed into the kitchen, dragging the kids with her. She wasn't protecting them, she was hiding behind them. And me? I stayed put. Because I already knew who was about to appear. The last time I saw him, we weren't wearing suits or ties. We were covered in dirt and blood, both of us half dead in a jungle no one dared admit we'd been in. He swore then he'd outlive me. He swore he'd find me. The staircase groaned under his weight, but then, silence. He stopped halfway down, lurking in the shadows. We couldn't see his face. Only the glint of something metallic in his hand. "Henry," the voice said again. Calm. Familiar. Too familiar. "They told me you'd gone soft. Sitting in a rocking chair. Forgetting everything we built." Mark shouted, "This is my house. Whoever you are, get the hell out." His voice cracked like a boy yelling at a schoolyard bully. The man in the shadows chuckled. Low. Dark. "Your house." "No, son. This house has been mine longer than you've been alive. Your old man knows that." The kids whimpered. Lisa tried to hush them, but her eyes never left the shadow on the stairs. And Jacob, God bless that boy, leaned close to me and whispered, "Grandpa, what do you need me to do?" For the first time that night, I smiled. A real smile. Because finally, I had an ally. I slipped the cedar box into Jacob's hands and whispered back, "When I say the word, open it." The man in the shadows took one more step. The floor groaned. The storm rattled the windows like a drumroll. And then he said my name again. Not like a stranger. Not like an enemy. But like a brother. Henry. The shadow lingered on the staircase, just out of reach of the glow strips along the floor. I could see the outline of his boots, polished but worn, and the faint sway of that metallic object in his hand. "Tell me, Henry," he said. "Do they even know who you are?" Lisa piped up, brittle and sharp, trying to mask fear with arrogance. "He's just an old man. You've got the wrong house." The shadow laughed. A cold, dry rasp. "Wrong house? Lady, I helped build this man's life. You're living in it, and you don't even know whose blood soaked the foundation." Mark barked back, desperate now. "Stop talking like you know him. He's nobody." And that word, nobody, lit a fuse in me. Because the truth is, they never cared who I really was. They only wanted the version of me that fit their little play. A frail, doddering old fool they could roll their eyes at between courses of turkey. The man on the stairs chuckled again, like he'd heard my thoughts. "See, Henry. They've written you off. Just like the others did. That's why I'm here. To finish what they started." The metallic object shifted in his hand, a knife, but not an ordinary one. The kind we carried when missions didn't officially exist. Serrated edge. Balanced grip. A blade meant for work no one could speak of. Jacob clutched the cedar box tighter. His eyes darted between me and the figure. "Grandpa," he whispered, "I'm ready." And oh, how proud I was in that moment. The boy had steel in him. Real steel. I leaned close. "Not yet. He wants to play. Let him." Because this wasn't just a break-in. This wasn't just revenge. This was a test. And I'd been preparing for it my whole damn life. The rival shifted one step lower, just enough for the glow to catch his jawline. Scarred. Familiar. His lips curved into a smile. "Come on, Henry," he said softly. "Show them who you really are." The storm outside roared, but the silence inside the house was louder. The man on the stairs took one more step, and at last his face caught the emergency glow. Scar down his cheek. One eye clouded white from the jungle blast we both survived. A grin like a wolf that smelled blood. "Hello, Henry," he said. "Your family's been keeping you soft. I almost pity them." Lisa gasped, dragging the kids back like she thought she could melt into the wall. Mark held up the poker like a shield, but his hands trembled so bad he could barely keep it steady. Jacob didn't move. He just waited, eyes fixed on me. And for the first time that night, I stopped pretending. Slowly, I stood. Straight-backed. No wobble. No cane. My voice lost the frailty they were used to hearing. "You think I forgot who I am?" I said. "No, old friend. I was waiting for the right time to remind them." Lisa's mouth opened, but no words came. Mark's poker clattered to the floor. I took the cedar box back from Jacob and set it gently on the table. Opened it. Inside, beneath the watch and the note, was a smaller compartment. Hidden. Locked with a sliding panel. I pushed it aside, revealing what I'd tucked away years ago. Cold steel gleamed in the dim light. Not rusted. Not forgotten. Maintained. Ready. The rival's grin widened. There he is. Jacob's eyes shone with something between terror and pride. "Grandpa." I picked up the weapon, the weight settling into my hand like it had never left. My family stared, wide-eyed, realizing in that moment they'd never really known me. And then I leveled it toward the man on the stairs. "This ends tonight." The steel in my hand gleamed, steady as my heartbeat. The rival froze halfway down the stairs, his grin faltering for the first time. "You kept it," he said. "After all these years." "Of course I did," I said. "Unlike you, I never lost my edge." The kids huddled in the corner, whispering questions Lisa couldn't answer. Mark stepped forward, but not toward me, toward the rival. His voice cracked. What do you want from us?" The rival's cloudy eye shifted to him. "From you?" "Nothing. Your furniture." Background noise. "I came for Henry." "But you," he sneered. "You've done my job for me. You made him weak. Humiliated. Mocked in his own bloodline." Mark swallowed hard. Lisa stammered, We didn't." "Don't lie." My voice cut through her words like a blade. For the first time in decades, my command tone came back. The one that once made men twice Mark's size snap to attention. "You wanted me small. Pathetic. Convenient. You forgot who I was." Lisa tried to laugh, but it curdled into silence. The rival chuckled darkly. "You see, Henry. They've been doing my work. You've been living among enemies all along." Jacob's small voice broke through the tension. "No. Not all of us." He stepped closer to me, shoulders squared, eyes sharp. The rival raised an eyebrow, amused. "Ah. The boy's got spirit." The storm rattled the shutters. The ticking returned, louder now, echoing through the house from everywhere at once. My wife's watch pulsed in my pocket like a second heartbeat. I leveled the weapon higher, pointing straight at the rival's chest. "You came here to test me. You wanted a finale. Fine. You'll get one." The rival's smile returned, sharp as broken glass. He spread his arms. "Then let's end this the way it should have ended 40 years ago." And as he stepped into the full glow of the light, the house shook with a thunderclap, and something upstairs came crashing down. The crash upstairs shook dust from the ceiling. The kids screamed. Lisa clutched them like a stage actress begging for sympathy. Mark just stood frozen, poker forgotten on the floor. The rival grinned at me, knife glinting. "You've got one shot, Henry. Make it count." I didn't move. Not yet. Because this wasn't his arena. It was mine. The ticking grew louder, not just from the watch, not just from the ornaments. From everywhere. Under the floorboards. Inside the walls. In the chimney. Everywhere. He didn't know. He thought he was staging the game. But I'd been setting my board long before he ever showed up. I slipped the watch from my pocket and held it up. The hands were glowing faintly in the dim light. Midnight. "When the clock stops," I said softly, repeating my wife's words, "it begins." And right on cue, the ticking cut off. The rival's grin faltered. The cedar box on the table clicked. The secret compartment Jacob hadn't seen slid open again. Inside wasn't just my weapon. It was a transmitter, old school, analog, but still deadly reliable. Jacob's eyes widened as I pressed it. A deep whump sounded through the walls. The fire in the hearth snuffed out like a candle. The emergency strips brightened, flooding the room in stark white light. And from the upstairs crash site, a figure staggered into view. Not another intruder. A uniform. My uniform. Displayed on a mannequin I kept locked away. Torn, blood-stained, still bearing the insignia of the unit that never existed. I'd left it there years ago as a reminder. Tonight, I'd set it to fall. A ghost of who I was, now staring my rival in the face. His smirk broke. For the first time, he looked uncertain. You kept it all." "Of course I did," I said. "And you walked right into my house thinking you were the hunter. But you're not." I stepped forward, steel steady in my grip. "You're just the last loose end." He lunged. Knife raised. Fast, but not fast enough. I didn't need to swing. Didn't need to fire. I just let him come, and as he crossed the living room rug, the boards beneath him gave way. A trapdoor I'd cut weeks ago. hidden under their pretty carpet. He fell hard into the crawl space below, knife clattering out of reach. The kids shrieked. Lisa wailed. Mark stumbled backward, useless as ever. I leaned over the gap, staring down at him. You wanted an ending. Here it is. The rival looked up, eyes wild, face twisted. You can't bury me, Henry. You never could. I closed the trapdoor. Slid the bolt. The ticking resumed somewhere in the walls, my systems locking into place. And then I turned to my family. Their faces were pale, trembling. For once, no one laughed. You spent years mocking me, I said, my voice calm, measured. Calling me weak. Forgettable. Tonight you saw the truth. And you'll never forget it. Jacob stood beside me, chest heaving, but his chin high. He didn't look afraid. He looked proud. I rested a hand on his shoulder. One day, you'll understand why I did this. Why I kept the past close. For nights like this. Outside, the storm began to ease. Inside, silence hung heavy. And for the first time in decades, I felt something I thought I'd lost. Control.